First of all, I want to thank Lois that she invited me to talk about her book, and I'm really very privileged to talk about this book, which is a wonderful book, as Raphael already said. So for those of you who read it, you know what I'm going to talk about already, and for those of you who didn't read it, you don't know, so you'll be surprised. Okay. I'm going to partly read and partly just improvise, which I think is maybe the best mixture to talk about this book, so I don't forget to say something. Lois Holtzman begins her book, Vygotsky at Work and Play, saying, I met Lev Vygotsky when I was an emerging academic, a becoming developmental psychologist, psycholinguist. That's the first sentence. I met Lev Vygotsky when I was an emerging academic, a becoming developmental psychologist, psycholinguist. I met Lois Holtzman in a mysterious way. Neither one of us knows anymore when, nor where, nor how. What Lois remembers as an occasion when she met me is the reception in honor of Gita Vygotskaya's visit to the East Side Institute. What I remember is not when I first met Lois, but some gray winter day in the early 90s, spent on a cold bench and walking along the Hudson River, and Lois listening to my grief about the wars that were starting in Yugoslavia. Lois dedicated the book to Jovan Savic, a psychologist from Yugoslavia who worked and played for a revolutionary psychology. It is not a coincidence that Lois discovered Yugoslav psychologists who, like her, work to create new development with the people and for the people, and whose therapeutic and revolutionary work is based in the ideas of Lev Vygotsky. Lois and her work are part of an intricate web of connections, a life history of intertwined relationships that are draped over space and time to connect us in ways we are just beginning to discover, even though we live them all the time. So let me tell you about this book, Vygotsky at Work and Play, what makes it so important. First of all, it is a story about personal development, from a developmental psychologist, psycholinguist, to a creator of collective forms of working together, constructing environments in which to act on the world and making meaning that take and make full relationships between people. And as a story, it is exciting and illuminating. More than merely telling a story, Lois describes a way of understanding, using and extending Vygotsky's ideas, which is very different from the ways that many others understand Vygotsky. The most important ideas that Lois developed in her approach and that are described in this book are those that expose and surpass the pervasive dualisms in the psychological discourse and writing. The divides between cognition and emotion, between an individual and the collective, between learning and development, between self and other, between permanence and change, between play and work. She is able to cross these divides with her whole way of thinking from the very beginning. The divides that were there at the time when Vygotsky was writing his works, and they are present now in the mainstream psychology and education and humanities, I would say, in the United States, and I would say probably across the whole Western world. And that have not served us very well at all, except, in fact, they have been detrimental for where we are today in many areas of human life. This was possible not only because of particular ideas that Lois found in Vygotsky, but because of the specific interpretation of these ideas. One of the biggest ideas that many people kind of repeat as a mantra is a zone of proximal development, zone of proximal development, ZPD, ZOPED, whatever you want to call it. But what is it really? There are debates, and most people understand ZPD in terms of one little illustration that Vygotsky gave. It is the difference between what a child can do alone and what a child can do when a little bit helped. It's a very cognitive definition. It's a definition in which a child is a subject of somebody's action and not an actor herself or himself.